So I really want to get there and go there and get it over with.
All right, real good.
I kind of know what it's about, and it's something that's really small.
That was
600 Breezy believed he was only being charged with a minor offense, but it was everything but. He recently received a hefty RICO term that could prevent him from ever being released. There are rumors that 600 Breezy isn't going down by himself. He's already snitching on some well-known people in an attempt to save time. I know the whole thing, the arrest that made all the difference. Antonio Valentino King, better known by his stage name, 600 Breezy, was traveling through Wisconsin on the morning of August 27, 2025, when what should have been a routine traffic stop turned into the event that would potentially terminate his career forever. During the stop at roughly 7:30 a.m., police found an active extradition warrant associated with Pennsylvania. Suddenly, one of the most genuine voices in drill music was in jail on charges that would prevent him from ever being free again. 600 Breezy have previously into a foul with the law? Not at all. He had spent more than 10 years negotiating the perilous nexus of rap, fame, and street life. After being born in Chicago's Englewood area, his identification and legal issues had been heavily influenced by his membership in the Black Disciples, particularly the 600 group, which put him right in the thick of some of Chicago's worst gang wars. The hip-hop community was rocked by the arrest. However, it wasn't wholly unexpected to those who had been following 600 Breezy's tumultuous journey. He was arrested and detained without bail, according to court records, an unmistakable indication that whatever crimes awaited him in Pennsylvania were severe enough to demand his arrest right away. This arrest was especially concerning because of the conjecture surrounding the charges. Potential connections to a state-level RICO probe are suggested by online conjecture, especially on sites like Reddit's Pure Ecology community. The most effective tool used by the federal government to combat organized crime is the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, or RICO. Additionally, when it is used against rappers, it typically indicates that prosecutors think they can demonstrate the artist's involvement in a criminal business. The man's subsequent court appearance gave the impression that he was accepting of his
fate.
You know, I don't know. I don't know what the elements are of the various offenses in Pennsylvania. If you're unsure of that and want to look into that a little bit further before you make decisions here, I'd be happy to continue this for a day or two, or
So I really want to get there and go there and get it over with.
all right, real good.
I kind of know what it's about, and it's something that's really small.
But
His contemptuous portrayal of the accusations as minor appeared to be inconsistent with the seriousness of the circumstance. After all, extradition warrants and being detained without bail are not usually the outcome of minor issues.
No, that's,
I know that.
yeah, you don't want to get into the facts of it because somehow it could potentially get used against you later on.
Despite 600 Breezy's flippant dismissal, the judge's warning not to divulge the facts because they might be used against him later showed how serious the situation was. Throughout his career, 600 Breezy had been plagued by increasing legal issues, which culminated in this arrest. His arrest for possession of crack cocaine with intent to deliver during a multi-agency narcotics enforcement operation in Waterloo, Iowa, in 2012 marks the beginning of his legal history. He would be troubled for years by a string of probation violations and subsequent incarcerations that began with that first arrest. In 2017, he tested positive for marijuana and broke his probation by traveling without authorization to play at venues in Houston and Los Angeles, earning him a 10-year prison sentence. The pattern was evident even though he was only sentenced to 18 months due to legal intervention. 600 Breezy was unable to avoid legal issues. A trail of possibly incriminating material has also been left behind by his feuds with other artists. The most notable of these was his continuous feud with Tekashi 6ix9ine, in which became dangerous when 6ix9ine and insulted dead Chicago rappers.
You go and die. You gon' die. And that's all I'm saying. I'ma go to jail respectfully. I'ma go to jail respectfully. When I see you respectfully, I'm not me.
Breezy
Your average rap
talk.
And you gotta move around with security cause you gotta move around with security cause you a hoe. You gotta move around with security. Real street don't move and take security guards. You gon' die.
Law enforcement organizations keep a tight eye on this type of public threat, particularly when it targets a well-known federal informant like 6ix9ine. An excellent illustration of how Breezy's online persona resulted in actual legal repercussions was his arrest for making terroristic threats. In December 2021, as a result of the rivalry, fans weren't the only ones who documented his threats. They were kept as evidence for prosecutors to utilize subsequently to link violent criminal businesses to patterns of criminal behavior. It was especially ironic since his arrest occurred in August 2025. A few months prior, 600 Breezy had gained notoriety by denouncing a mass shooting that left 4 people dead and 15 injured at Chicago artist Mellow Bucks's mixtape release party. He had evidently positioned himself as a voice of reason in a scene that was sometimes condemned for glorifying brutality by using his platform to call out the needless bloodshed. And yet here he was, facing charges that might have something to do with the exact world he had been avoiding. The antagonism between various factions within Chicago's drill scene, in particular, was brought to light by the arrest. The matter was further compounded when 600 Breezy's condition was ridiculed on social media by another Chicago rapper Lil Zay Osama, who wrote, "Brio, the streets ain't for you." The importance of this moment for the drill music community was made clear by the media coverage of his detention. Discussions centered on the discrepancy between 600 Breezy's carefree demeanor and the possible seriousness of RICO charges.
600 Breezy has been hit with a state RICO charge, man. He started to explain it on camera to the judge, but the judge said halt, and he waived his extradition, so he will be going to Pennsylvania to fight this RICO charge.
The disparity between 600 Breezy's public downplaying of the charges and the possible gravity of what he was truly dealing with was aptly illustrated by this observation.
There's something small, there's something minor. Hey, ain't nothing small or minor about no RICO, man. See,
these charges are not given out carelessly. They stand for the government's conviction that they can demonstrate a pattern of criminal behavior, including several offenses and maybe several defenses.
So to go down to another state and cause havoc, or however he called this RICO, is insane, man. Hey, I damn near spit out my coffee, man, when the judge said, I was drinking some Dunkin' Donuts, man, and the judge said a state RICO, I damn near spit out my coffee, man.
For 600 Breezy, the Wisconsin arrest was more than simply another legal setback. It might have been the start of the end for his freeman career. This arrest bore the weight of a pattern that prosecutors love to use to demonstrate criminal intent and continued engagement in illegal acts. Given his history of legal issues, which included prior incarcerations in Iowa and other states, the Pennsylvania warrant was secret, which further complicated the case. It would be impossible for 600 Breezy's legal team to prepare a suitable defense until they got to Pennsylvania, and the accusations were unsealed if they didn't know the particular charges. This ambiguity only made the issue more serious and fueled rumors about what the authorities thought they could prove against one of the most well-known drill rappers in Chicago. It becomes evident as we learn more of 600 Breezy's tale that this arrest was not an isolated incident, but rather the inescapable end of a life lived on the precipice between criminal culpability and artistic expression. Fame and notoriety. Drill music fame is a risky game. We must look at the perilous world 600 Breezy lived in as one of Chicago's most genuine drill rappers in order to comprehend how he ended up facing potentially life-altering accusations in Pennsylvania. Making music wasn't the only goal here. It was about surviving in a world where the distinction between entertainment and evidence got more hazy and where maintaining creative credibility frequently came at the expense of legal risk. Antonio Valentino King was born on April 16, 1991, and grew up in the most dangerous areas of Chitan, where surviving until the age of 21 was regarded as a blessing. Antonio was exposed to the kind of street politics that would influence his entire perspective while growing up in neighborhoods connected to the Black Disciple Street Gang, especially the 600 set. We're talking about the communities where might get you smoked, where loyalty meant everything, and where gunshots were more common than ice cream trucks. The 600 block wasn't only a group of 600 people who claimed to have influence. This was his identity, his family, and his defense. For him, the Black Disciples more especially, that 600 faction were everything. He hung around with more than simply these homeboys. These were his day ones, the brothers who would support him when the opposition came slicing through, the men he would ride or die with. However, 600 Breezy's come-up narrative is portrayed with tragedy, as is the case with many. In 2013, at the young age of 17, his friend and fellow member of Black Disciples, La Capone, a budding drill rapper, had his wig split. It was more than just losing a friend when LA was gone. It was similar to losing a sibling. He would be compelled to take this rap game seriously as it ignited a fire beneath 600 Breezy. He was no longer merely spitting bars for amusement. He was reciting the 600 with each breath, carrying the light for his dead soldier. Don't Get Smoked, a song released by 600 Breezy in 2015, was more than simply music. It was a battle cry from the trenches, a street anthem, that unadulterated, unfiltered intensity that only comes from someone who truly lived what they were talking about was present in the song. This was no attempt to sound tough by a studio mobster. The streets sensed that this McCoy was authentic straight from the bowels of the beast. But take a look at this. the cosmos can occasionally toss you a curveball that completely alters your plans when you're working hard in the hood. In September 2015, Drake the Sixth God himself performed Don't Get Smoked on OVO Sound Radio. Now picture yourself as a young cat from the 600 block who is merely attempting to get something to shake. All of a sudden, millions of people are listening to your music thanks to the world's biggest rapper. It is more than just a cosign. From the top of the mountain, it is confirmation. Drake and 600 Breezy's relationship wasn't your normal business partnership. This was a connection of the real, recognize a real kind. You can hear the sincere admiration in 600 Breezy's voice when he talks about how Drake truly rocks voice.
And you know what I'm saying? Like, understand, like, think, you know, like how to understand how just my voice end up on this album, because Drake really with me like that.
See, Drake did more than just give the cameras a 600 Breezy. Behind the scenes, he was working hard for his first day from Chicago.
Like a lot of for me behind the scenes, you know, like I don't really, he make me want to care about the rap shit. I don't care about this.
Truly displaying love. However, when trying to break into the music industry, many young people from the neighborhood don't understand what 600 Breezy understood. He was aware that he couldn't simply try to ride someone else's wave as a clout chaser. Because 600 Breezy maintained its authenticity, there was reciprocal appreciation. He recognized the uniqueness of Chicago.
Fake. And turn up, he got a good fan base, like especially where he from. Like they riot for that man, so tell him, you know, he ain't like, we come from Chicago where this, we started from rap beef. They just get on, come right out of this rap beef. Really, they homies really dying for this shit, all that shit. Real
Drake culture and its inability to be replicated. Drake's unsolicited appeal made it noteworthy. Drake gave 600 Breezy a great deal of respect when he made it clear that he didn't request a feature or Drake's attention. This was not a case of chasing influence. Drake appreciated that 600 Breezy wasn't attempting to utilize their connection to be put on, and this was genuine street-to-street recognition. However, despite their growing camaraderie, 600 Breezy never forgot that the streets were still calling and watching. This is where the story becomes tricky because Drake's more tactful management of disputes would eventually clash with 600 Breezy's devotion to his people and his knowledge of street politics.
And anytime I asked my homie, can I get on somebody, he always say no, and this time he just gave me a shrug, like it's whatever, because he tweaked me. So that's all I need.
Breezy contributed a spoken word drop to Drake's song Lose You at the conclusion of the More Life project in 2017. It was the ultimate expression of their relationship. Being featured on a Drake album is more than just a feature. It would be like receiving a blessing directly from the rap gods. Additionally, it placed 600 Breezy's name on automobile speakers and living rooms worldwide. However, this is where the narrative takes a surprising detour that will leave you speechless. The system was constructing a case that would ultimately bring 600 Breezy to ruin. While he was establishing his reputation and making connections with one of the world's greatest artists. You see, when you start from where 600 Breezy came from, the game is already rigged. Additionally, success only makes you more desirable. The Tri-County Drug Enforcement Task Force, working with the Waterloo Police Department's Tactical Unit, carried out search warrants at 6 homes in the Waterloo region back in 2012, when 600 Breezy was just 21 and still getting started. Antonio Valentino King was charged with possession with intent to deliver crack cocaine after being taken into custody at 1013 W. Mullen Avenue, Waterloo, Iowa. It is one thing to get caught with work, but it is quite another to be caught with so much work that people believe you are pushing it. This charge went beyond simple possession. You might be imprisoned for 10 years or longer with this type of beef. However, 600 Breezy got a break that isn't often given to cats in his circumstances. King entered a guilty plea to the crime and was given a 10-year prison term with 5 years of probation suspended. He was able to further his work while avoiding the pen when the probation was moved to Illinois, where he was currently residing. This appeared to be supernatural intervention at the moment, an opportunity to change his life and pursue his goals without worrying about others. Probation isn't freedom, though, as anyone who has been through the system knows, the leash is simply longer, and that leash might feel pretty damn short when you're a young person from the neighborhood trying to get into the music business. King had only 3 months remaining on his 5-year probationary sentence when Iowa corrections officials accused him of breaking the terms of his probation in early 2017. What infractions would jeopardize everything 600 Breezy has worked so hard to achieve? King left Illinois without authorization in order to perform in music venues, including Lure in Los Angeles, California, in December 2016, and the Ava Center in Houston, Texas in October 2016. He was also purportedly in East Atlanta, Oakland, California, and New York, according to social media posts, indicating more unauthorized travel. Consider the predicament this young monarch found himself in. He's finally succeeding, securing his luggage, growing his fan base, and booking gigs in big cities. However, theoretically, Every step he took to succeed was against his probation. A further setback for King was that he tested positive for marijuana use in 2015 and 2016. When 600 Breezy had to drive to Iowa to face the music, the frustration was genuine. King was upset about the issue in a now-deleted Facebook post, stating that Iowa officials had intervened after 5 years, but his supervising probation officer in Chicago had failed to report the infractions. He wrote, "This long-ass drive to Waterloo, I'm about to walk in court on straight mode, because if I've been breaking the law by traveling, I'm also breaking the law by appearing in court. The funny thing is that I wasn't violated by my Chicago supervising PO, Iowa did." Iowa wanted to suddenly step in after 5 years. Here was a young man who had been working hard, creating a respectable career, avoiding difficulty, and using his music to provide for his family. However, the system showed no interest in his development or ability. Their intention was to use him as an example. The very accomplishment that deserved to be praised was on the verge of being used against him. 600 Breezy could not have predicted how drastically his life would alter as he drove to Iowa, knowing that his future and his freedom were on the line. One of the most contentious sentences in modern history would take place in the courtroom he was about to enter, and the hip-hop community as a whole would feel the effects. The scenario was set for a judicial battle that would put not only 600 Breezy's determination to the test, but also the allegiance of everyone who professed to be on his side, including his well-known Toronto acquaintance. When being honest backfires, it was anticipated that on June 2, 2017, 600 Breezy would finally put an end to his legal issues and fully embrace his future as a budding rap artist. Rather, it became the day the system demonstrated to him, and all those in attendance, that there are two distinct forms of justice in America, one for privileged people and another for young black guys from the neighborhood who have the courage to aspire beyond their current situation. 600 Breezy believed he was dealing with a standard probation, hearing when he entered the courtroom in Waterloo, Iowa, he might receive a slap on the wrist or some more limitations, but nothing that would stop him from making progress. Andrea Dreyer, the judge, had other ideas. She dropped the hammer, rescinding Antonio Valentino King's probation and imposing the initial 10-year jail sentence from his 2012 conviction after concluding that he had broken the terms of his probation, mainly because he had traveled without permission and used marijuana. 10 years for consuming marijuana and touring as a musician. Give it some time to sink in. It was like a drive-by shooting when the news reached the hood. It was Rita King, King's mother, who had to post the heartbreaking news on Facebook. Iowa just locked up Antonio Valentino King for 10 years. This is the worst birthday of my life. A mother needed people to know what had happened to her son, so she shared her pain raw and unadulterated for the world to see. However, 600 Breezy wasn't dying quietly. His voice had the same defiant intensity that had initially made him a famous, even when he was incarcerated. You could hear his anguish and his resolve in a county phone conversation that,
"Hey, look, man, they played me, man, but they can't hold me forever, man. I don't got no 10 years, man. I'm looking at a year left."
This wasn't
the streets like wildfire. It was more than wishful thinking. There was something about this man that the press and his detractors didn't get. He was aware that he had an advantage over other defendants, genuine loyalty from a powerful person.
power.
Shout out to my big brother Drake. He got any lawyer in the city and his country on my side, man. 600 Cartel, this shit has never died down, man.
See,
You discover who your true ones are when times are hard. Drake also shown that he was more than just a business associate. He was a sincere friend who was prepared to back up his claims. Drake's level of dedication was demonstrated via a leaked text message that was ascribed to him. They took him in, revoked his probation, and gave him 10 years. He won't have to do it, but basically lock him up for smoking weed and being black. Drake's crew demonstrated the kind of dedication that is uncommon in the music business by making it apparent that they would help secure elite legal counsel. Drake's backing, however, also brought attention to the racial dynamics at work in this situation. A leaked text message from a member of King's team implied racial bias in the enforcement, claiming the infraction was for being black and consuming marijuana. Even though this couldn't be demonstrated in court, it mirrored the sentiment of many in the neighborhood, which was that 600 Breezy was being singled out because he was a prosperous young black guy who refused to break with his heritage. But having strong attorneys wasn't the only reason he was confident he would win the case. It was founded on the knowledge that, with the correct connections and resources,
Breezo ain't got no 10 years, man. I'll be back on the streets 10 months or less. So you better turn up, man.
this
functions as intended. This prediction would prove to be incredibly accurate, demonstrating that 600 Breezy had a deeper understanding of the game than most others realized. Tina Muhammad, King's lawyer, submitted a plea to re-examine the sentence in February 2018, claiming that King's prosperous music career made him a valuable contributor to society. King served less than a year in prison before being released on December 12, 2018, following the motion's success. But being free doesn't mean that the target disappears, particularly if you're a young black man attempting to succeed in America with a criminal record. The pattern of harassment would persist. demonstrating that 600 Breezy was not the end of the system. By no means. The fact that 600 Breezy's own words and deeds over the years have produced an extensive record that prosecutors can utilize to support their case is especially harmful.
He been in the newspaper for XXX, allegedly having something to do with that, which I doubt. I testified that he ain't did no like that. But he been in a lot of cases that's open, that's big, like the XXX is big. So, you know, he known.
600 Breezy's name has been continuously associated with significant criminal activities, as seen by the allusion to being connected to several high-profile instances, even if just through media speculation. Prosecutors specifically search for this trend of being well-known and associated with numerous open cases when constructing RICO charges. They don't have to establish that every crime they look into was perpetrated by someone. All they have to do is demonstrate that the individual was a member of a criminal organization and that they took part in or profited from the larger illegal activity, given his history of making remarks that can be construed as admissions of criminal behavior. The complexities of 600 Breezy's legal status become even more clear. Observers' horror at hearing the suggestion of RICO charges shows how severe these accusations are and how someone with 600 Breezy's criminal past could get a life sentence. Prosecutors would probably concentrate on a pattern of behavior that spans years and encompasses both illegal activity and the organizational structure that made it possible for those acts to occur. The type of organizational devotion and structure that prosecutors utilize to establish the presence of a criminal enterprise can be seen in even seemingly innocent shoutouts to colleagues who are incarcerated. Perhaps the most detrimental element of 600 Breezy's case is that, rather than supporting his defense, his popularity and mainstream connections serve to bolster the prosecution's case. The prosecutor's story about defendants who believe they are above the law is strongly influenced by this type of confidence in avoiding the accusations and allusions to ongoing organizational operations. 600 Breezy has frequently cited the Drake connection as a source of financial and legal support, but it could actually work against him in a RICO lawsuit. Having well-known followers could aid in legal representation, but it also implies that the suspected criminal group had access to substantial funding and widespread acceptance. The combined impact of 600 Breezy's entire criminal past, in addition to the anticipated RICO accusations, makes this case possibly correct. Prosecutors can use his history of legal issues, which includes the 2012 drug arrest, the 2017 probation violation, several arrests in Alabama and Iowa, and now the charges in Pennsylvania too, show that he has been a career criminal who just so happened to become well known, rather than a rapper who has occasionally run afoul of the law. Given that he was taken into custody during what seemed to be a regular traffic check, it is likely that law enforcement has been keeping a tight eye on him in anticipation of any chance to carry out unexecuted warrants. This degree of surveillance usually means that he was already the subject of a serious investigation, which may have included coordination between several law enforcement agencies, wiretaps, and an examination of bank information. 600 Breezy legal team is effectively blind going into court because the Pennsylvania accusations are sealed, meaning they can't formulate a thorough defense until they are certain of what they are up against. In RICO trials, which can entail intricate conspiracies involving numerous defendants and years of alleged criminal behavior.
Cause I'm thinking it's something him riding around with a gun. They said at Damo funeral, you know, he was showing guns, or I don't know if he was showing guns to Lil Zay.
This advantage is especially noteworthy. Prosecutors can use this analysis to show how these numerous disagreements and criminal accusations are interconnected, forming a web of evidence that shows continuous criminal enterprise activity. As seen by the mention of displaying firearms at funerals and continuing altercations with other rappers, 600 Breezy's public conduct continuously supported the prosecution's most plausible theory that he was an active member of a violent criminal organization. Every weapon displayed in public, every threat made on social media, and every connection to other suspected criminals adds to the larger RICO jigsaw. The seriousness of 600 Breezy's predicament is made evident while he awaits extradition to Pennsylvania. He can't use his celebrity connections and skilled attorneys to beat this arrest. He faces the kind of thorough prosecution that has effectively shattered other criminal organizations and sent their leaders away for decades. If the RICO rumors are true, the prospect of facing possible RICO charges is a sobering reminder of the repercussions of a career spent striking a balance between criminal responsibility and authenticity. For a man who once boldly stated that he would be back on the streets in 10 months or less, it's possible that the Southside guy from Chicago, who gained notoriety for being honest, has finally realized that being too real might cost you everything in the eyes of federal prosecutors. One thing is clear as this tale develops: 600 Breezy's arrest marks the end of a period in drill music, and a final reckoning for a generation of musicians who made their living by straddling the perilous line between mainstream success and street credibility. The game that made him famous has obviously altered forever, but it remains to be seen if he will come out of this legal battle with his freedom intact. I appreciate you rocking with me. Check out the other amazing videos that are currently playing on your screen if you thought this one was crazy. They are comparable to fire, no cap. I'll see you in the upcoming video. Remain alert.